Welcome to You Can Call Me Goddess because you're so much more than a queen. My name is Manouk Vink. I am a trained intuitive energy healer specialized in transforming your body and your life. In this podcast, we are going to be diving into everything to unlock the goddess that you are within you. Think of it as the ultimate glow up from the inside out. It's time to unlock your power. It's time to unlock your magic. So sit back and enjoy the show. Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of the You Can Call Me Goddess podcast. And in today's podcast, we're going to dive into something that I think will be very valuable because it changed everything for me when I realized this and also when I experienced this myself. So what we're going to be talking about today is like why therapy or going to a psychologist doesn't always give you the benefit that you hope for. I mean, it can, but why it's not as effective, why it's not always as effective. And the reason we're going to be talking about this is because I, over my life, have been to multiple psychologists, and that was because I struggled with OCD from when I was about 7 or 8 years old, I believe, right up until, my teenage years, because it started like developing in different areas. And everything changed after I started diving into the world of energy. And I actually met a previous coach slash mentor of mine who showed me something totally different, a different approach that really changed my life into what I am doing today. It was like one of the catalysts. I mean, everything is, but yeah. So I want to dive into that topic today, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience and why that may be happening. So first of all, I think it's incredibly powerful when you decide that you want to change for the better. And when you have like the self-awareness of like, hey, I probably need help to get out of wherever I am in right now, whatever I am in right now. Because here's the thing, it has been like a stigma or a belief that, whenever you are going to a psychologist, even when I was a teenager, I was like very embarrassed to tell people at school, so I didn't, that I would need to leave class to go see a psychologist, right? Because you immediately get this like label of being crazy or you're not okay. And that label is starting to change more and more now that, we grow in the world and things change. But in some societies and some cultures, it is still really much viewed like that. But what I have realized through this journey is that, the more you work on yourself, the more you develop yourself, the closer you start getting to your core self, to who you are meant to be in this life. And I think the greatest investment, the greatest project I've worked on is myself. And I will always say that because that is what changed everything. And that's what made me realize how powerful I am and what I'm meant to be doing in this world and how I'm meant to be guiding others eventually. So we're going to just take it back a little bit, and I'm going to walk you through my experiences going to psychologists, going to therapy, psychologists, just to psychologists basically, with my OCD, and why it took me so many years to get over or resolve my OCD issues basically, and what I was struggling with. And then I'm going to talk about why conventional psychology and therapy, it depends what kind of therapy you do, obviously, but in a lot of ways, it isn't very helpful, and why it doesn't work compared to things that I have done that do actually work and actually made a massive change in my life. So basically, when I was 7 years old, I started obsessively washing my hands. So OCD is, obsessive compulsive disorder, where you try to control the outside factors in your world because you feel like you lack control or lack confidence in the actions that you are taking. And so to exert like control over actions that you can control, you have this false sense of like being able to control your life in that way. And obviously back then I didn't understand that. I don't really remember, if I'm really honest, back then what my full thought process was, but I do remember having touched something and wanting to immediately wash my hands. Like it could be anything. It could literally be anything. And in my mind, I felt like there was like a layer of dirt on my hands. And this was to the point that I started getting like scabby hands, and that's when they were so dry, they were just cracking and breaking up. And that's when my mom realized there was something like wrong, and she could see that I was obsessively doing this action, right? So this started developing, and she brought me to a child psychologist. I mean, to be honest, all I remember from going to her was talking about pretty intense topics. I mean, I remember being very aware of life and death at the age of 7 and having conversations about that. I also, this was also around the time my grandpa had developed cancer. So that topic started coming up. I started becoming very aware of like the world and how the world works. And I started becoming aware of like, I had massive panic attacks when it came to death, thinking that, you know, if I died, everything would go black and like that was it. And I couldn't comprehend that. I didn't want to I would have massive panic attacks around this topic. So I remember talking about that kind of stuff. And other than that, we would like use Play-Doh and clay and I don't know. And then I honestly don't fully remember, but for a while, the hand washing went away, right? So it went away, but it never fully resolved itself, because then at a later age, I developed a different form of OCD. So I would have a bedtime routine, and this bedtime routine would consist of multiple things. So I would need to push everything back in my closet. I forced myself to read 10 pages of a book. I was not allowed to go to sleep until I had read those 10 pages of that book. And even if I was slowly nodding off, I forced myself to stay awake. And this was torture for me. This was absolute torture, because I remember at the time of 5 p.m., around 5 p.m., I would start panicking because I knew that my bedtime was around the corner and that I had to do this long list of things before going to bed. And every time my mom tried to help soothe me because I would be so panicky about the bedtime, she would try and give me like warm milk. She would try to give me a CD with like ocean sounds in the background, and I don't remember, dolphins, I don't remember, to calm me down. But what actually ended up happening is this sound and these extra things to calm me down would just be added on to the long list of things that I had to do. So with OCD, if you know the feeling, you are trapped basically by your own mind. That's what it feels like. So it's like you feel like you can't, like if you don't do the actions exactly how you're meant to be doing them in your mind, the thing that you created, then something bad is going to happen. And I could never fully explain what the bad thing was, but I just was terrified of something bad happening when, if I didn't do the exact thing, right? So then I went to a psychologist again, and I really loved her technique because what really changed in this. So I'm going to compare notes of like what helped for me and how these techniques really changed and why certain things really caught my attention and why others don't work. So I'm just going to give you a little backstory, and then we're going to go through all the things that I've experienced going to psychologists. So at this stage, my mom brought me to a psychologist again to try and get rid of this OCD. or to stop it from happening. And I remember there was like a bit of a different approach, and we would talk a lot. And I think we did some meditations, visualizations, and yeah, I ended up nipping that in the bud. And then one day she kind of told me, okay, I want you to tonight go to bed and just not do any of the actions that you were doing. And so I did, and nothing happened. So I thought I had fixed this OCD issue that I had. And it was like such a massive weight off of my shoulders that I didn't have to do the, do the actions that I was forcing myself to do back then. So anyways, fast forward a couple of years later, I'm now 16 years old, 15, 16. And little did I know, it slowly snuck up on me again, this OCD behavior, in my nutrition. So it started going into an eating disorder. So to the point where I was like, there was this one phase where I was eating lots of gummies and like, I don't think anything else. So yeah, I was like, because I lost a lot of weight around the age of 14 because I started like becoming a little chubbier, very self-conscious, you know, all that jazz. So then I went to Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers was a nice way to control that, but also a nice way to reignite my OCD. But I didn't realize that my OCD was linked to my eating disorder. But it was. Looking back now, it was. So I lost a lot of weight, and then I basically started developing these weird eating habits. So eating as little as possible, then only eating gummies. I remember there was this one phase there. Then at 16, it started turning into obsessive training and obsessive eating disorder behaviors as well. Like it wasn't anorexia, it wasn't bulimia, it was somewhere in between. It was an OCD thing where I would there was like this time where I was obsessively eating carrots only to keep my hunger down. And I felt like if I ate carrots, then at least, you know, I would eat low calorie foods, but fill myself up to the point that my skin literally turned yellow. So this obsession and this like obsessive behavior, this compulsive behavior started transferring into my eating behaviors. And it was like this weird, like this sense of I needed to control this stuff, right? Like it was like, otherwise I would panic. I would need to get my workouts in. I would need to eat this way, because otherwise, you know, my body wouldn't be the shape that I wanted it to be. I would gain weight. So there was like this obsessive behavior around that, and it kept developing actually right up until in my 20s, where I was competing in a bodybuilding competition. So at this stage, my mom got very worried at around 16. She took me to an eating disorder clinic. I did not like the vibe. I told her, no, I don't want to be here. So we left. That was the end of that, because I was quite stubborn. And then she took me to a dietitian who also I didn't want to listen to, because she didn't, in my eyes, look like someone I wanted to look like. So why would I listen to her? So I didn't listen to her. And then later on, basically in relationships and the eating behavior, I don't really remember how we ended up there, but I think my mom suggested me going, because I started having my first boyfriends and things like that. And that added another layer of like self-image healing, right? A lot of like self-image healing, a lot of like challenging those beliefs that you have about yourself with this toxic relationship that I was in. Well, like, I mean, it was just like, I mean, he was apparently cheating on me all the time. I didn't know. Or I pretended to not know. I felt this obsessive need to get like validation from him. And yeah, so I went to another psychologist. No, first in between, my mom sent me to one. This psychologist really got me, because immediately as I came in, we had the one consultation. First of all, I didn't feel safe. So she was sitting, and then there was like someone taking notes on the side, some intern, and she immediately, right off the bat, on the second session, no, the first session, she was like, okay, so next session, we're going to be talking about medication. And I was like, yeah, no, we're not. I was like, I didn't say that, but I left and I said to my mom, I'm not going back there because I don't need medication, right? I'm sorry, I'm not doing that. Thank you, intuition, for having my back then already. I'm so happy that I already believed in my power somewhere deep down that I could battle this without all the extra crap, right? So, and this is not saying that, if you did any of that, that was meant for you. Like maybe like this was my own personal story and I could just feel within that I didn't need that there was another way I could do this. So, and then I went to another psychologist and oh God, that I was also like, I'm done with this. She's not giving me any value. So basically what it actually got me to do, first of all, I ended up studying psychology because I wanted to understand how all of this worked. I was very intrigued. I've always wanted to help and coach people. And so having studied psychology, I also understand, like it has given me a lot of perspective on a lot of things, but it also showed me, because I remember studying psychology and when I entered, it's very research based, which is fine. Like I love that, but it wasn't very like you could get straight A's, get the best grades in psychology, but be so terrible at connecting with people that how are you going to be a good psychologist? Like I never comprehended that. And also it's your real life experiences that, that will help you, because I ended up going, I don't remember what stage this was at, but I remember going to another, he was an energy worker. I didn't really know exactly what he did, but he would test probably in the same way that I am now, because he wouldn't really explain his methods, but he would test also certain levels that I had. And so what really helped when I connected with him, we'll go down that path and then we'll compare like the two things. He had experienced OCD in a way that resonated with me. So him telling me his story and his obsessive compulsive behaviors made me feel like he really understood what I was going through. And that really, really helped. So going to him made a massive change. And this was not the conventional psychology route. And I always knew that the conventional route, well, actually, after all of this, I started realizing the conventional route was not working for me. And now having, trained as an intuitive, having developed my gifts more and understanding that was all part of my soul path to get me where I am today. But also with all my psychology knowledge, with all my coaching knowledge, with everything and experiences, now I fully realize what was happening. So eventually, because this, like the change took time, and I want to tell you, it doesn't need to take as long. It doesn't need to take you as long to get to like the best place in your life as it took me, because I went through all of that. Sorry. So you don't have to, so that you can find a way to skip all that crap and get where you want to be right now. But I needed to experience all of this to fully understand this. So at about 23, this like reflections and situations and struggles with self-image and all of this stuff, because it all interlinks, started happening in relationships, right? I started like struggling seeing my self-worth, and I would link that self-worth to a guy that I was seeing. Like if they didn't like me, then that meant that there was something wrong with me, right? That I wasn't beautiful or strong or valuable enough, worth it, right? So that's what I started internalizing then. And also I started questioning my intuition back then, because I'm sure you all know the feeling where you're dating someone and suddenly they ghost you or they reject you. And that we spoke about this in the rejection podcast. And your intuition is telling you, but hang on, you like me. Why are you doing this to me? Which makes you feel like you're crazy because you feel like your intuition is totally off. When in actual fact, your intuition is not off. this is something else that's going on. This is a reflection that's going on, right? This person has come into your life to reflect to you, or this situation has come into your life to reflect to you where there is still an imbalance or where you still have limiting beliefs that you need to work through. But that's a topic for another day. So why I wanted to go down this route, because I think it is incredibly important to understand why certain things work and why certain things don't. And it also is a massive driving force for why I do what I do, because having realized this has changed so many things throughout the years for me, and has really got me to where I am today. And it is still a journey, because I am continuously wanting to grow, wanting to be a better version of myself, wanting to tweak every little, thing so that I'm literally at the best space ever. But I can fully say that I am the most self-confident, I am the happiest, and the most, myself that I've ever been. I think that's the best way to describe it, in all ways. But there is obviously still, I'm continuously working to improve and get better and everything, so that I can also be a better coach for all of you guys and help you guys get to skip all the crap that I had to weed through, right? So basically, what I've noticed in the years of going to psychologists and then getting my start working with energy and energy work, and the differences that I've noticed in coaching styles, and also what made me realize what really is the biggest game changer, is that when I've been to previous psychologists, right, and therapies and things like that, what a lot of conventional methods do, or things, is we like to sit in the past. So a lot of the time when I would go to a psychologist, it's like digging up the dirt, basically, and going back to places that have affected you. And somehow we want that, right? I remember wanting that, oh, I need to feel the sympathy and get into that victim mentality, and the hardships that I've gone through. And I even remember in uni having this weird conversation with friends where we were literally trying to one-up each other with how much of a troubled or difficult past we had. Why? Because you want to be special, right? You want to be known to have overcome more. It's this wanting to stand out and be special. So if you've gone through more, that makes you more special, that makes you need more love and need more sympathy, right? And that's always where these things come down to. So having gone to psychologists, I don't remember all of the techniques, because I was very young at 7 years old. I remember conversations that I had, speaking about death and questioning all of that, but I don't remember what else we did other than activities. But with more recent psychologists that I had gone to, it's already more than 10 years ago, but yeah, it's probably more than almost 15 years ago. But basically, I remember, for example, the one that wanted to give me medication on the second session, what I was feeling and what I noticed in these conventional sessions, right, that I'd experienced, was they want to go and rehash the past. So what you do a lot in psychology is you go back to what happened to you. And what this does, it just brings up more memories and more proof of situations and circumstances that allow you to feel the way that you feel right now. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with you feeling the way that you feel right now. But the problem with that is you make these things more prevalent and more present in your life. That doesn't mean that in coaching, right, or in intuitive reads or intuitive in healing sessions, you don't go to the past. The only reason you go to the past is to figure out where this belief or this limiting belief started, right? But you don't need to rehash it. You don't need to sit in it, because what that does, it creates a victim mentality. It creates a look at, like, not putting it down, because if you've been through crap, like, of course you want to, like, it's okay to go back and figure out where it came from. There's nothing wrong with that. But the problem with these techniques is that you kind of sit and recycle the past. You constantly remind yourself of the past. And so if you've listened to any of the other podcasts, or we dive into this in the free membership as well, in the free content, when you want to reprogram belief systems, what you need to do is you need to find proof of why the opposite is true. So if you're constantly proving to yourself these limiting beliefs that are true about you. So for example, I go back to how hard it was and unstable it was for me to move around a lot, and, you know, probably the influence of my parents, and I don't know, like you go back and you rehash to how you were feeling unsafe and unwanted and, you know, not loved. What that does, it just rehashes these beliefs and it solidifies them even more. So you are in that bubble of that negativity, right? Of feeling that victim mentality, of feeling that, yeah, you see, it's true. See, I knew it was true. So you start confirming and believing again that this is true about yourself. And I want you to think about how that creates a problem. Because if you listen to the previous podcast that we spoke on, and if you listen to any of the series that I've done, you start realizing that the cause of a reflection or an obstacle in your life is a limiting belief. And that limiting belief needs to be tackled so that you can grow and upgrade and, like, step above that obstacle, step out of that limiting belief. But if that limiting belief is constantly being rehashed and reconfirmed, and you're being reminded of this traumatic, difficult past that you've had, and you're constantly, like, being, like, babied, which happened to one of the psychologists that I've been to. She would baby me and it pissed me off. I remember, like, literally getting pissed off. You are not stepping into the powerful version that you are. You're actually regressing back into those scenarios and situations and being reminded of how terrible and hard it was, right? Which kind of allows you to keep sitting in that energy instead of seeing the power that you hold. And I'm going to show you the opposite experiences that I've had to show you the difference, right? Because this feels heavy, right? When you look back at all the difficulties and all the trauma and all the heaviness, and you're constantly rehashing it and going over it and, you know, like, feeling like the victim and, oh, poor you, poor, like, of course. And I'm not saying this to diminish any struggles that anybody is going through. What I'm saying is it's not helpful to sit in that victim mentality, because the victim mentality is not going to get you anywhere. It's not. It's just not. When you can start taking full responsibility for where you're at right now, and you can start stepping into your power, that's when things start to change. So another take I want to give on that, and I realized that when I first started my membership and my business, is that I realized I didn't like it when coaches and psychologists and any coach, mentor, whoever you have that you're trying to learn from and who's trying to, like, get you to grow, makes you dependent on them. When they create a dependency, that means the only way that you're going to step into your power is if you are with them, if you're going to sessions with them. So what they're actually doing is they're kind of like hooking you, and we can dive into that more. That's a dark force thing. They're hooking you and they're holding you back. They're not allowing you to spread your wings and step into your power. They might not be conscious that they're doing this, by the way, just want to let you know that. But they are doing this in a way that's kind of holding you back, not stepping into your power, because some coaches, some psychologists, some people out there want you to keep coming back to them and kind of be dependent on them. And whenever I see that, I just don't think that they're a good coach, because a good coach, a good mentor, a good psychologist wants you to be able to do it on your own, wants you to have the power to step into your own full power and get you where you want to be. That is when they truly, authentically want that for you. They will give you the tools to do it on your own. So that is something else that I came across. So basically, when I went to that one session where I had like this intake, get to know each other, I immediately was like, obviously my intuition didn't like the energy there. And I immediately like intuitively felt like, no, I don't want to be here. And especially when she threw out the medication, like that to me was like, you don't think I'm powerful enough? I can do this on my own. I'm not like that far gone that I need medication. That was my thought process at the time. Again, if you like, in some cases it can help. Maybe that is the right route for you. But for me, it wasn't the right route, because I knew deep down that I could step out of this on my own without any of that. So I immediately, there again, it was like making me dependent on something else, right? So I immediately exited that situation. Then when my mom came to me with this other psychologist that I ended up going to, oh my God, I remember just being like, what is this doing for me? Like, I remember sitting across from her, and she was lovely and so sweet, right? But all she was doing was like, oh, yeah, that must be really tough. Yeah, that is really hard. And how did that make you feel? And I got the ick, because I was like, excuse my French, bitch, how are you helping me right now? It's like, all you're doing here is you're telling me, oh, how sad. And first of all, that's holding me back. That's not getting me anywhere. It's not giving me any tools. I literally wanted her to tell me. I remember saying this to, I think, my mom. I was like, listen, like, she needs to just tell me what to do to get out of this situation, to get out of this energy, instead of just like stroking me and like babying me. I was like, this is not getting me anywhere. So what were some techniques that changed my life? Were the techniques that, looking back now, got me to feel empowered. So the first example that I had of that was one of my favorite. So this is what really got me interested into psychology, was when I was 14 years old. I had my nighttime routine, 13, 14 years old, nighttime routine OCD situation. And I don't really remember, like, listen, many years ago, I don't really remember what we spoke about, but I remember doing some visualization techniques. And then she had this amazing like sandbox, and she would let me intuitively choose like little, like she had these little like ornaments, like statue thingies. And she would let me, she was like, okay, I want you to just intuitively feel which ornaments speak to you today. And it was my favorite thing of those sessions. I got to pick them. And then she would explain to me what they represented. And it made me feel empowered, because I remember picking like a phoenix. One of them was like a phoenix. And she was like, yeah, you're just so powerful and you want to be free and all of this. And now looking back, obviously, it's like it really resonates, all of it. And you feel trapped in this and this and that. And I was like, this was giving me like empowerment. This was making me feel like I was a strong, girl back then, and that I could handle this, and that I had this power within, but I just didn't trust it yet, right? And so that's why she gave me the power. She gave me the power to step out of this. She didn't. I had the power myself, but at the time she was like tapping into that power, right? And she believed that I could just do it on my own. And that's why after a couple of sessions, she was like, okay, tonight you're going to go to bed and you're not going to do any of this OCD stuff. And that's it. And I like, if you understand OCD, that's one of the scariest things that you can do. And I can't explain it unless you understand OCD. But it was so scary for me to go to bed without having to do the whole nighttime routine situation. But anyways, I did it and it felt so freeing and so empowering. But still, I hadn't healed the internal thing because it came back. So she was on the right track, right? She was touching something within me that made me feel strong and she could see my strength. And so the next phase that really helped me was going to one of those other energy workers that I worked with, and he understood me. So again, it was this understanding, but again, it was still a little bit leaning into that victim, like, I feel so sorry for you mentality. So it helped for a little bit, but it didn't fully hit the nail on the head, right? So what really started changing everything for me, so later on, I got into this world. I was always very interested in energy, spirituality, and this wasn't even to, like, at the time I didn't think, it wasn't like for me to, how do I explain? It wasn't like I was struggling with OCD. It wasn't like there was anything that I wanted to heal or fix, although there's always something that you can heal to become stronger and step into your power, because I believe, like, healing is the most powerful thing that you can do. Stepping into your power is the most powerful thing that you can do. And that's a constant journey that you keep moving forward in. So I got introduced through a guy that I was actually dating to this one coach, because he was like saying she reads people, this and that. So basically, you know, what I do today. But I was just dipping my toe into this world, like intuition and all of this stuff. And so I ended up going to this, I don't know, she didn't call herself a psychic. She just said she could read energies and minds and things like basically what I do, but I like a little less precise. So, yeah, anyways, so I went there, and for the first time that session, she was very, like, she had high frequency about her. So being in her energy, I tapped into my high frequency, right? My frequency elevated. And she basically literally showed me how incredible, powerful of a being I was. So instead of, we didn't rehash the past, we didn't ever look at past stuff. All she did when we were doing sessions or when I joined some of her courses was tapping into your power, showing you the power that you hold within. So for me, that was a game changer. It was a game changer because every time I was with her, I could feel my power again. But again, I didn't have the right tools to unlock that power within me, right? It was still like almost this dependency of like, I need her to feel that way, even though she was showing me my own power, right? So she got me like quite far in that, in feeling my own power. And that's what made me really, really realize, like, going back and sulking and sitting in that victim mentality is not going to get you anywhere. The stuff that happened to you, your soul chose it to get you the biggest growth, right? The stuff that you've been through to get to where you are today is all part of your soul growth. It's all part of you stepping into your power. So if you're constantly leaning on that and blaming those situations for not being where you want to be right now, then you're not learning the lesson that your soul wants you to learn, because you have to conquer those obstacles and step into that power. Because if you hadn't been through all the crap that you'd been through, you wouldn't be the person you are today. Because if you are powerful, and which you are powerful, but when you tap into that power and you get over that obstacle, you grow as a soul, you grow as a being. And that for me was a massive game changer, to see the power that I held within, right? So she, like, obviously knowing now more the universal laws, I remember she told me, because I was struggling in the dating situation and getting rejected, and now understanding, reflections, I was just not seeing my own value and worth. And, that was all part of that journey. But she said to me, listen, these guys that you're dating, they are feeling this power. They don't know, they can't explain it, but they're feeling your power and they're getting intimidated by it. and they don't know how to handle it. So, but the interesting thing is, like, this is what happens. You hand out certain scripts to people, and that's where reflections comes into play. And she couldn't fully verbalize that because she didn't understand the law of reflections. But you're handing out this script and they are just working off of the script. Your energy is communicating with them, and that's what's happening. But anyways, that's besides the point, because that's another topic that we can dive into, which we've dived into before. How do you even say that? We dove into before dove. But just the fact that she was actually showing me my power instead of like sulking in my past and trauma and all this crap, even with like emotions would release, and she wouldn't comfort me. She would just let me have that emotion and let it pass. Right? So that was such a new technique, but it was very like, it really showed me that when you can unlock someone's power within and show them how powerful they are, which you are, if you're listening to this, you are incredibly powerful, and you just need to start tapping into that power. That is what's going to allow you to grow. And knowing that now, and how I work with my clients and my members, I believe that when you can fully see your own power, when you can see how incredibly amazing you are, and fully embrace that, and fully feel that, and fully believe that in your core, that's the game changer. That's what gives you full control over your life. Because without you knowing it, you are creating literally everything around you already. So when you have the right tools, when you get the right tools and you start shifting this stuff, you become the most powerful being. Because as children of Source, we have that power, but we've just been so disconnected. So even in conventional therapy sessions and the way they handle that, it disconnects you even more. It actually holds you back from fully stepping into your power, because you're being babied, you're being held back. You're not being shown that all these obstacles that you're going through are all stepping stones to you being the phoenix that you are, to you being that powerful being that you are. And so, I mean, there's a time and a place for everything. But when you can start realizing that, because when we go back to that type of psychology and we just want to be babied and comforted, you're kind of holding yourself back, and you're kind of creating this identity that this trauma is you, when it's not, right? This trauma, these experiences that you've been through are all there to get you to conquer them and to step into your power, to step into the power that you hold. Because without all of these experiences that I've had, without the OCD, without my body image issues, without me feeling unsafe when I was younger, moving around a lot, and all the other stuff that came with that, right? Without all of that, I wouldn't have become the strong woman that I am today. I wouldn't have the stories to tell you so that you could resonate with me. I wouldn't have experienced these things and found out what actually works. And what actually works is unlocking your own power. Because even though going to her had shifted so much, the moment I truly started shifting everything in my life was when I started training my intuition, when I started tapping into my self-worth, my self-value, my self-image, my self-love, and started doing all of that. That's when everything started to change. Where literally recently my partner said to me, he was like, isn't it weird that I've done nothing differently, but you've done so much and I treat you completely differently? And I was like, that's the magic. That's the magic. You don't need anybody to change. When you change and see your full power, You literally dictate how you're already doing it. You just don't know how to shift it. But you literally dictate how people around you treat you. That is, I mean, I always knew magic was real, but I didn't know that I held the magic wand, and so do you. You have that superpower. The superpower that you hold is to fully love and see your own power and see your own value and see how these obstacles are serving you to step into the powerful person that you are. When you can start seeing obstacles as upgrades, literally, instead of sulking in it, literally everything in your life changes. Everything. And that, I'm not just saying that. I know it. My body changed. My relationships changed. I made new friends. My business started booming when I started doing this, when I started applying the tools to start shifting my self-image, my self-love, started training my intuition. I started honing in on my own powers, and everything started to change. And you can do the same. You can do it even faster than me, because you can skip all that crap and get there even faster and get even better results when you fully do this. So I hope you understand why I felt like this was a powerful thing to understand. Because if you're going to therapy right now, if you're not seeing the results that you feel like you should, or you keep falling back into old patterns, that is because you're not going deep enough. You're not going to the core. Plus, you're rehashing maybe old shit, and you're making it like stuff in the present instead of tapping into your power and seeing how this doesn't need to be part of your identity anymore, right? So I want you to think about that. I want you to think about, how have you been proving to yourself how these limiting beliefs are true, and start shifting that. And I have a great free membership, which I'll link in the show notes, to help you with amazing tools that have changed my life, tools that have changed my clients' lives. And they're all inside the free membership, and you can start shifting these things today. And I want you, let me know how these things start impacting your life, because it is a literal game changer. Thank you for listening to me rambling on about this. I hope it brought about some kind of shift in your life today. It's meant to, and you got this. The message that I want you to hear from this is that you're fucking powerful, and you just need to embrace that and step into that, because that will change literally everything in your life. Thank you so much for listening, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to You Can Call Me Goddess. I am so happy that you joined us in this show today. If you feel like this podcast gave you any sort of life change or value, then share it with someone you think would also get a lot of value out of it, because maybe it could just be that one thing that changes that person's life. If you enjoyed the show, please give it a nice rating below or in the show, because we would love to expand more on topics that you enjoy and keep this podcast up and running. Anyways, thank you, beautiful, and I hope to see you in the next podcast.